All right, everybody, welcome to Bare Bones Talk, where we are hanging out and talking about stuff going on in the news today, including the fact that our commander in chief is acting like kind of a whiny little baby. So, Time magazine released its Person of the Year issue, and Greta Thunberg, the climate change activist and teenager, got that recognition, and Trump didn't, and he is fuming about it, which he has been for years. He's been pissed every time he has not actually gotten the nod from Time magazine. So let's take a quick look at what he said back in 2012. I knew last year, he said, which I'll highlight here, that Time had lost all credibility when they didn't include me in their top 100, Trump tweeted in October of 2012, proving, number one, that he can't stop tweeting for years, and number two, that he's been angry about this kind of thing for a very long time. 3 years later, he did the same basic thing when Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Germany, got the nod. He said, I told you Time would never pick me as Person of the Year despite being the big favorite. Big favorite. Big favorite. Um, they picked the person who is ruining Germany, as opposed to, the guy who's ruining the United States. Hey, Dill, how you doing? So, yeah, Trump is continuing his crybaby mentality by being really pissed that a teenager who has literally captured the attention of the entire planet, sailing around the world in a sailboat to, emphasize the idea of renewable energy and being an activist for not destroying the planet that she's growing up in, somehow got the nod when the guy who is driving the United States into the ground was overlooked. I'm doing okay. As you know, we just had a good game stream on the other channel, and now we're doing news and politics and such things. So, yeah. But that's a picture of Greta Thunberg. She is, as I understand it, I believe she might actually be on the autism spectrum and is still accomplishing these amazing, world-spanning, impactful things. So, just an impressive human being on all fronts, and there's Trump whining about it. So, um, and Time magazine called to say I was probably going to be named Man of the Year like last year, but I would have to agree to an interview and a photo shoot. I said no and took a pass. And Time says that's not how Time picks a Person of the Year, so he basically lied through his teeth about that. He's, as I said, Trump cares a lot about who Time picks because he displays a lot of the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. Meaning he sees himself as the only real and important human being on the planet and basically thinks everybody else is there for his needs, as like the supporting cast in the Trump is Everything TV show. So, not exactly the greatest leader the United States has ever had, and by that I mean he's probably easily, massively the worst president the United States has ever had. Like, you can't even name most presidents of the United States unless you're really an avid history buff, and he is legitimately worse than the ones that did so little that you can't even remember their names. So, not great. Also, he's being impeached, or at least he's in the process of being impeached. I don't think it's actually going to go all the way through because it has to pass the Senate in addition to the House, and while the House is very likely to vote to impeach, the Senate is still controlled by a slight majority of Republicans, and they will never vote to impeach their own guy. As Trump said during the campaign season, he said, I could shoot a guy on Fifth Avenue and nobody would care, and he's proven that pretty much to be true because his adherents will literally ignore any bit of bad acts that the guy commits and still back him without reservation, without hesitation. He's something. So let's take a look at the headlines from the Associated Press. For those of you who are not familiar with the Associated Press, the Associated Press is one of the major entities called a wire service, okay? And what that means is they are the place that a lot of reporters around the world actually work for. They're almost always the first on the scene for anything, and most other news outlets actually get their story starts from the Associated Press or other wire services. So when a report comes over the wire, they then dispatch their own reporters to follow up on it. So the Associated Press and Reuters are the two biggest ones you're going to see dealing with the United States. So they're always a good place to start. And the Associated Press and Reuters are basically known as the most neutral news sources you're going to find. And even they are starting to have a hard time looking neutral when they talk about that guy. So, what is it? What are you going to do? All right, so let's take a look at the headlines here. We have Watchdog caught in political crossfire on Russia report. Justice Department's internal watchdog was caught in a political tug-of-war Wednesday as the Republican and Democratic senators used the report. Blah, blah, blah. We'll probably take a look at that. That report only came out 14 minutes ago, so let's take a look here. Or 25 now that I've had it sitting there waiting for a few minutes. So they're trying to get a distinction of whether this is a legitimate probe or a badly bungled farce, and of course, the Republicans are saying it's a farce, and everybody else on the planet is acknowledging that it's legit. So, that tells you pretty much everything you need to know right there. It's basically the Republicans are in full defense mode where they're trying to say anything they can to make it sound like the investigation into the president is not legitimate. But you basically have to be a brain-dead idiot to not notice all the horrible crap that Trump has done. So, what are you going to do? What else we got here? Back to the Associated Press. Fears mount that the New Jersey shooting was an anti-Semitic attack. Okay, so this ought to be a good indicator for you of just how hard the Associated Press tries to maintain neutrality. This is a bunch of guys who literally drove up in front of a Jewish retailer and blew people away, and they're still, since they can't claim with 100% certainty that this was an anti-Semitic attack, that they're just saying that it's being investigated as if it were potentially anti-Semitic. But when people pull up in front of a Jewish business and blow down, the doors down with gunfire against Jewish people, it's pretty obvious it's anti-Semitic. So Dill says, what do you think about the Socialist Party in Germany? I don't have enough information at my fingertips to discuss that. But if there is something specific you want to discuss and you want to post a link with some information, you're welcome to do that. At this point, I believe I have left it possible for links to be posted in this stream with the goal of people sharing information. So if there's something you'd want us to take a look at on stream, by all means share a link. So let's see, this is in New Jersey, in Jersey City. Jewish market in Jersey City fears it was an anti-Semitic attack. Recounted, a man and a woman deliberately pulled up to the place with a stolen rental van with at least one rifle and got out firing. Okay, so I think that when you look at it and you say, these two people stole a rental van expressly to commit a mass shooting and picked a very specifically Jewish business to shoot up, I think it's pretty reasonable to suggest this is likely an anti-Semitic attack. But you can tell, even the Attorney General from New Jersey is trying to hedge. The why and the ideology of the motivation, that's what we're investigating, okay, what do they have to do? Actually put up a neon sign saying we're shooting these people because it's a Jewish business before you can deduce that, that this is an anti-Jewish hate crime. Oh, yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah. So, yeah, New Jersey's washing gunfire and blood, so that's great, in the sense that it's not great at all. What else? Impeachment trial. Trump wants drama, but GOP wants it over. Wow, look at the smug face on this guy, and look at the picture of his wife in the background. She's got a face on that looks like, oh my God, will you please just shut up in front of the microphone? It's like she's had it up to here with him. That's a beautiful picture right there. Oh my God, if that could hardly be better if you'd asked her to show her true feelings. So Trump wants vindication. The president has made clear he views the next step, a trial in the GOP-controlled Senate, as his focus. So if you are being accused of stuff that could eventually, amount to you being charged with treason, and you say, I want vindication, but the place I'm going to seek it is in a trial setting where my party owns it, that's a pretty good indicator that you're screwed and that the only way you're going to win is by having the trial someplace where the fix is in. I mean, come on. Let's get real with that one. Like, if you don't think you could win in a neutral location, you're guilty. That's all I'm saying. What else? How streaming, diversity, Me Too shaped TV, decade of change. I may have to do some looking into that for another show. What else is going on here? I'm not really interested in the UK tonight. We want to focus on the United States here. Saudis, okay, who cares? I mean, yes, there's stuff happening around the rest of the world that's important. There is one thing going on here. I'll see if I can find a recent update about it. Is there a search? Okay. How do you do a search here? There we go. AFGHA, Afghanistan. Yeah, there we go. U.S. military deaths in Afghanistan. Okay. Oh, wait, nope, that's an old article. Where's the new one? I think there was a bombing at a U.S. base in Afghanistan earlier today or last night. Where is that? Let's see. Topics. Maybe it's in... I don't know. Let's see. Top news. Let's try the top stories and see what we can find. Trump publicly minimizes impeachment while he stews privately. Yes. There is a story with that title there, I believe. Let me see if I can find an article about the Afghanistan thing. Okay, so here we go. We'll have to look to ABC News because that's the first place I found it. Taliban claim suicide car bombing at Bagram military base, killing 2 and wounding over 70. My family has connections to people that know folks with family in that region, and apparently they shut down Wi-Fi at the base and such because they're concerned about the families of the dead and wounded finding out about this by some Facebook post instead of hearing about it respectfully through proper channels. It's kind of a nightmare. A suicide bomber struck an under construction medical facility at Bagram, the largest U.S. military base in northern Afghanistan, on Wednesday morning. Taliban claims responsibility. 2 car bombs involved in a gun battle following after, injuring 70 plus people and killing 2. Hang on a second. Wife trying to get my attention. Shut down Wi-Fi at Fort Bragg.
There are a bunch of soldiers from Fort Bragg.
Yes, a bunch of soldiers from Fort Bragg might have been involved, so they shut down Wi-Fi at Fort Bragg here in the United States. Correction, sorry. Taliban fighters who remained after an unsuccessful attempt to breach Bagram airfield were killed in a series of airstrikes this evening. So basically, some Taliban fighters used 2 car bombs to attack an air base, or military base, and we responded by blasting them to smithereens and then, airstriking where we thought any surviving Taliban members might be. So it's just a total mess over in Afghanistan. A lot of injured, several dead. Just a really unfortunate time. Wow. It's just horrible. What's interesting, here's an interesting bit. The U.S. recently announced that it reopened negotiations with the Taliban after talks broke down. So literally you have one arm of the Taliban bombing American stuff while another tries to hold peace talks with the American government. And there are 2 possibilities there, neither one of which is spectacular. The first one is you've got factions within the Taliban that have no idea what the other factions are doing, so you have that left hand not knowing what the right hand was doing kind of thing, which would mean it's useless to try to negotiate peace with the Taliban because even they don't know what their own guys are up to. or they knew their guys were going to do it and still made a pretense of showing up for peace talks, in which case, again, starting to look useless to negotiate peace with these people, because if that's the case, then they knew they were planning on doing a car bombing at an American military base and still were pretending like they wanted peace at the peace talk table. So that's not cool. That undermines the whole possibility of there being peace between the United States forces and the Taliban at all. That's just awful. All right, let's go look for that article you were talking about. Main AP page. No. Where is it? No. Where'd it go? I know it's somewhere on the Associated Press site. I'm pretty sure I saw it here earlier. I'm not really concerned about the Houston Astros right now. Where'd it go? Blah, 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 blah. All right. Let's go back to the top here and look at political news. Topics. Politics. No. Where'd it go? Oh, on the CNN page. Okay. All right. Where did we lose it to? Politics. No. Here we go. There's the article. Let's see. What does this have to say? It's not the history-making Trump prefers. He's been quick to downplay the moment as a culmination of a partisan witch hunt led by angry Democrats. People familiar with his mindset say he's taken a somber view in private as his impeachment looms. Okay. Trump dismissed the impeachment inquiry as flimsy, pathetic, and ridiculous, telling the Pennsylvania crowd it was just a bunch of impeachment crap. So I gotta tell you, the way Trump talks only serves to reinforce the idea that he's a shit president. The man can't actually formulate a well-worded speech to save his life. He speaks like an angry grade schooler. He has no ability to speak formally, no eloquence, no ability to talk at a high level. He basically acts like a schoolyard bully. Look at this. This is the lightest, weakest impeachment. How is that even a descriptor for the impeachment process? Lightest? Give me a break. You know our country's had actually many impeachments. No, we haven't. There have basically been, I think, 3 actual situations where we've had impeachment proceedings go through, one of which was Clinton after the blue dress incident, and the other one was Nixon. You'd call judges and a lot of many impeachments, but it was on today. Everybody said this impeachment light. My God, it's like word salad coming out of this guy's mouth. It's crazy. The lightest impeachment in the history of our country by far. It's not even like an impeachment. Oh God. It's no wonder the United States has become the laughing stock of the whole frickin' planet with this guy speaking on our behalf. I think he's been preparing for this for some time, a Trump advisor said, adding the president has appeared somewhat taken aback that his actions toward Ukraine are ultimately what led to his likely impeachment. So here's the thing. I said earlier that Trump displays a lot of the characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder, which is when you think you're the only real person around and everything else is just there to be a minor character in the world movie about you. And when you have, it's called NPD for short, when you have narcissistic personality disorder, when you have NPD, it's difficult or impossible for you to see anything you're doing as wrong or dumb or anything that you could use a negative adjective to describe because you legitimately think the entire world revolves around you and that you can do no wrong, you know? So it doesn't surprise me to hear that insiders are admitting that he seems shocked that he's actually going through an impeachment process because he legitimately is likely to be incapable of understanding why this is happening. Like it's very likely he is unable to understand why anything he has done was wrong or worthy of a legal proceeding against him. Let's see. Trump still views impeachment through a serious lens. He does not want to be part of a notorious group of presidents who have been impeached. Clinton, whose own impeachment Trump has brought up repeatedly and critically. Trump says he does not want his own legacy to face a similar fate. So let's talk about Trump's legacy for just a second. I saw an interesting quote, and I don't recall who said it, but the person was talking about what Trump's legacy is going to look like. You know, what's going to happen once he is no longer president. And the person very astutely observed that once he is out of office and Trump no longer has command authority over the military and control over intelligence agencies with assassins and control over the Justice Department and its ability to investigate and imprison people, that all the people that are working with him now who think he's a stupid asshole, who have seen all the ridiculous bullshit that he has done behind the scenes, are going to have no more reason to protect the guy. They're not going to care about protecting his memory or his legacy. The minute he no longer has the ability to punish them, the world is going to hear volumes about the horrific and criminal shit this guy has done that people aren't talking about now because they're bound by oaths of secrecy, you know, to not say anything about a sitting United States president. He's got to know that the minute he's out of office, he's going to be, you know, publicly shamed. The Justice Department has made it clear that once he is no longer the president, that everything in the Mueller report will be usable to charge him with federal crimes. Like, he has a big motivation to try to steal another election and then try to undo the term limit laws to stay president for life. Because the minute he's out of office, it's very likely he'll be arrested on his way out of the White House, thrown in prison, and spend the rest of his life rotting behind bars for crimes against the United States. You know, because the thing that Trump doesn't understand, because of the likely NPD that he has, is that the people around him don't actually like him. They don't actually respect him. They don't think he's wise and smart and great and powerful and, you know, and capable. They think he's a fucking idiot who is barely being kept from destroying the country by a Herculean effort of the people surrounding him to minimize the damage that Trump's screw-ups are causing. It's just mind-numbing to think of just how much damage this guy is doing and how hard the people have to be working behind the scenes to keep some of the stuff that Trump does from exploding in everybody's face. So as far as his legacy goes, once Trump is out of office, everybody who he's been stepping on, who he has fired from their posts in government, you know, who he has been cruel to, who have seen the crap that he does behind the scenes, are going to come crawling out of the woodwork with recordings and videos and personal testimony, and Trump is fucked the minute he's out of office. You can't do the things that he's done and get away with them at the level that he's, you know, doing it at, especially because he's taking a massive daily shit on the very people who he would have to count on to protect him. So, you know, he's going to be screwed the minute he gets out of office. And I honestly can't wait to see it happen, you know, because we as a country are suffering because of the things this guy is doing. Okay, Dill says Graham pokes holes in FBI's Russia investigation during hearing. Is that on CNN? Did you see that? Graham pokes holes. Let's see. Can I find that? Where are we looking for that one? Let's look at the main CNN page, see if it's there. GOP senators say McConnell will move to acquit Trump. That's why I was saying earlier, it's unlikely he will actually get impeached because it takes both houses of Congress to do that, and the GOP, the Republicans, will never agree to it. And Mitch McConnell is known for being a dangerous, vile, evil, stinking weasel of a human being who will do anything to protect the Republican Party, no matter how criminal the person he's protecting may be. All right, let's see. So we're still looking for Graham pokes holes in. Okay, let's see. No. Ooh, excuse me. Well, I belched loudly. Where did we lose that to? One of the things is news sometimes updates so quickly that it can be tough to keep track of it all. Let's check that politics page again. No. Not Graham, not Graham, not Graham, not Graham. No. Where's Graham? Are we sure that wasn't on the Associated Press? Let's check the Associated Press one here. Hold on. All right, you said it's called Graham Pokes Holes In. Let's try that. Graham pokes holes in. See if we can't find that. Alright, well, maybe this will link back to the CNN article. CNN, here we go. Okay. Alright, there we go. Fantastic. We're back to CNN. Let's bring this back to the Associated Press site so we can come back to them later. All right. Wait, how did I just lose that? Graham pokes holes. All right, Justice Department's internal watchdog sharpened his criticism of the FBI on Wednesday, telling lawmakers he was alarmed that so many basic and fundamental errors occurred in the early months of the FBI's probe into potential Trump-Russia collusion. Thank you for the follow. It's politicized. Thank you. I think the activities we found here don't vindicate anybody who touched this, he said, delivering a stinging rebuke to the FBI leaders who claimed victory when the sweeping report was released on Monday. But where is the bit about Graham? Where's the bit about Graham? Let's try that again. CNN.com. Is that the article you were looking at, Dill? Or are we looking somewhere else? All right. Well, let's continue with this. Edit. Find Graham. Nope. So Graham says the Republicans or the FBI took the law into its own hands. Interesting. Said FBI abuse and misconduct reached historic proportions, comparing it to J. Edgar Hoover. Okay, so for those of you who are familiar with J. Edgar Hoover, Hoover was the head of the FBI way back in the day. What is going on with my camera? It keeps on tilting me off to the side here. Okay. He was notoriously anti-communist. He started the House committee, or he had this like committee on anti-American activities or whatever it was called, where he did the communist witch hunts. It was during a time period called the Red Scare, when he was accusing basically everybody he didn't like of being a secret communist agent. So suggesting that anything the FBI is doing even remotely compares to the J. Edgar Hoover days is just ridiculous. But sure, I mean, if you're a Republican, I guess you got to try saying something right now to distract from the horrific crap that the president's doing. Um, Keep in mind that Graham is also a guy who said he said we're dead if we nominate Trump for the presidency and we'll deserve it. So that he said that during 2016. you know, so this is a guy who is literally defending a guy who he admitted in 2016 could bring about the end of the Republican Party because he was such a god awfully bad candidate and a piece of trash as a human being. So oh, I gotta blow my nose. Hang on a second. I'm going to mute the mic so you don't have to hear my nose honk. The people on Mars said during the original Total Recall, air. Okay. So, yeah. Let's see. I'm a pretty hawkish guy. What a shock from a Republican. I'd hate to lose the ability of the FISA court to operate at a time when we need it the most, but after your report, I have serious concerns about whether the FISA court can continue unless there's fundamental reform. So this is a Republican saying if the government that's investigating the president doesn't do what they say, they're going to consider it to be illegitimate and block it from operating until it obeys. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm not sure where else we're seeing Graham stuff here, though. Dill. Okay, so, yeah, here we go. The sweeping investigation led by Special Counsel Robert Mueller confirmed that Russia meddled in the 2016 election, but did not establish there was a criminal conspiracy of collusion between Trump's team and the Russians. Horowitz said he backed Mueller's findings. So here's the thing. If you've actually read the Mueller report, it doesn't specifically say that Trump was, taking orders from Putin, but it does not in any way exonerate him or his team from anything. So you might actually want to consider reading the report yourselves. But it basically says a lot of people did a lot of bad stuff, and we're not exonerating anybody who was involved with this. So, it's a whole nasty circumstance. But yeah, so what else interesting is going on here? I don't know how far into the Associated Press's archive I would have to dig to find this, but I saw an article there earlier in the week that the Catholic Church is under fire for more of the pedophilia issues because a large number of states have changed their rules about the statute of limitations and the look-back periods under which they can report and prosecute sexual assault, which basically means that people who were raped by priests, years ago, who didn't know they could actually do anything legal about it or were too scared to, are now being given the opportunity to file charges and, sue the Catholic Church and whatever. And the Catholic Church is freaking out because the estimated damages, meaning the legal damages, the dollar value that would be associated with a class action of all the people who have already filed suit, and this is not including everybody who still could, but just the ones who have filed already could be in excess of $4 to $6 billion in court-mandated damages. So it looks like those chickens are coming home to roost. And it still bugs the hell out of me that the Catholic Church has a decades or potentially centuries old policy of protecting the rapist instead of protecting the children that are attending their religious institutions. Dill, I hope I don't offend you, but Republicans are idiots. You will not offend me by saying Republicans are idiots. I happen to agree that anybody who still is a diehard Republican at this point is really not paying attention to what's going on in the country, or is simply such a bad person that they don't care. There was a very viral post that was put up on Reddit a couple of months ago that pretty much sums up the Republican way of thinking. And I forget the exact wording. I'll try to paraphrase it as closely as I can remember it. But this guy on Reddit said that the thing Democrats don't understand is this isn't about right or wrong. It's about winning or losing. and that the Republicans don't care how wrong they are. They've hitched their themselves to the Trump wagon and will ride it right off a cliff rather than ever admit they were wrong or ever admit that they might lose or ever admit that anything they're suggesting is acceptable is not. So the guy basically said, I don't care how wrong I am. I'm going to follow this until death, period, end of story. And that is a very dangerous outlook for, nearly half the country to have. So, you will not offend me by saying Republicans are idiots. You might be more accurate to say that they are ignorant, that they are stubborn, that they are unwilling to acknowledge or admit that they are wrong or mistaken in supporting the party that they have chosen. But idiots works as a catch-all, I guess. And it's made them not just, ignorant and all this other stuff, but it's made them aggressive under this current administration because they've been looking at Trump and basically saying, we now have permission to act out in the most horrible ways that they can think of. One of them happened to me not too many months ago. I was at a restaurant in my hometown that I frequent, and I was eating a meal there with my mother-in-law and a guest that we had brought with us, and we're talking about politics, and one of the people who works the cook station there, a co-owner of the restaurant, in fact, happens to be a real Trump fan and diehard Republican, is always playing Republican talk radio in the kitchen and such, which, I managed to tune out, for lack of a better term, while I was eating there. But he comes charging out of the kitchen, yelling at us and verbally assaulting us and telling us how wrong we are and whatever. Like try to imagine you're out for dinner and some guy comes barreling out of the kitchen screaming at you, invading your conversation, interjecting themselves into the time you're spending with your family or your friends, and that's what actually happened. And I told the other owner, who was a family friend, that she ought to be glad that I didn't whip out my cell phone and start recording this and post a video of it to YouTube, because at that point she would have found her restaurant surrounded by angry, hugely pissed off protesters and probably been drummed out of business for that kind of thing. But I'm not the type of person who would want to financially ruin her because I was upset. But I've never been back to that restaurant. When she called to try to apologize on behalf of the guy, that same day, I said, I'm not coming back there because I'd be scared the guy will spit in my food. And she said, oh, he would never do that, which I imagine she kind of had to say because the guy happens to be her husband. But I said, he just demonstrated in great and powerful, ways that he puts his political views ahead of his professionalism. That is exactly the kind of person you would expect to spit in your food. So no, I'm not going back there. And besides, you shouldn't be the one apologizing to me. It should be him. But, so this is the kind of thing that happened to me. And I got off light, he didn't shoot at me. He's not like the guy from one of the protests in the South that ran over a protester with his car and killed her. So the really vile people in the Republican Party have been emboldened to be their worst selves because of Trump's administration. I think the U.S. has a closed political party, Republicans, Democrats. Technically, that's not true. Another party can take the stage anytime it can get enough people interested in it. The problem is that getting enough people to make a third party viable is nearly impossible. But it's not forbidden. It's not a closed system in terms of how it's constructed. But it behaves like a closed system in practice because of the obstacles that a third party would have to overcome to be viable, if that makes sense. Oh, man, okay. Just a little more about that. One of the real problems with getting a third party going is that the two major parties, the Democrats and Republicans, have a common interest in keeping their power at its highest possible point. So if they agree about nothing else, they agree about trying to keep a third party from becoming, legitimately a challenge to them. And that sucks for the American people because when you get right down to it, there are a few things that conservative thinking is actually good at and is okay about, and there are a lot of things it's bad about, and there are some things that are, not great about the way the Democratic Party acts and whatever. And a third party might be able to like take the best of both and do better with it, but it's very hard to get a third party to be given a real chance. What do I think about nationalism? Nationalism is shit. It's damaging. It's harmful. It is There's nothing good about nationalism, because nationalism is this bizarre belief that your country is somehow superior in every way and more deserving in every way than anything else. And it, like most other really fringe ideologies, most stuff that ends in ISM, it discourages people from objectively thinking about whether or not their beliefs are true. I'm sure that a lot of people in Germany in the 1930s and 40s thought Germany was number one, and were very nationalistic about that, and it was not okay, really not okay. So nationalism is horrifying. It encourages people to embrace the dumbest and most absolutist versions of belief about their country. It doesn't care about objective reality. It doesn't care about truth. It doesn't care about the flaws the country may have. It doesn't care about the flaws the leaders may have. It doesn't care about the flaws the citizens may have. It just says, we're number one with one of those giant foam pointy fingers, right? And doesn't care about anything else aside from chanting, we're number one. Now, nationalism is not the same thing as patriotism, okay? Patriotism can be a very positive thing. Patriotism is the idea that your country can be great, can be positive, can be a great contributor to the world, and that it's worth putting forth the effort to make your country that way. It is not blind. Patriotism is not blind. It's not rejecting of reality. It doesn't, refuse to hear the facts. Patriotism often involves taking a stand against things that one's own country is doing. And I can give you an example. Hang on a sec, I'll try and look it up. What the hell was the name of the place? There we go. That's it, the My Lai Massacre. My Lai Massacre, okay. So this is something that happened during the Vietnam War. Hang on a second, wife calling out. Could have been that my wife sneezed. So there was a village called My Lai in Vietnam. There's a short version of the story. I put up the Wikipedia page so you can read more about it. But basically, the American military went into this little tiny village and started killing everybody they saw, men, women, children, raping anything female that they ran across. And the crew of this one helicopter, there's a helicopter pilot who, where's his name? Where is it? Okay, so Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson Jr., Warrant Officer being the highest enlisted rank you can get without being an actual officer in the military. He was a helicopter pilot, and he ordered the gunners on his aircraft to fire on the American soldiers who were committing these war crimes if they would not stop doing them. That is patriotism. That is an American saying, we are better than this, and I will not accept it when my countrymen are horrible, and I will do what I have to do the right thing. That's patriotism. That's ethics. That's morality. That is not nationalism. Nationalism would have said, to heck with these Vietnam citizens, they're garbage that we're at war with, go ahead and kill them and rape them and slaughter their children and do all this other horrific stuff. That is the difference between patriotism and nationalism. Dill asks, what do I think about socialism versus nationalism? The two are not comparable. Socialism is a government and economic system. Nationalism is an outlook about one's country. It is not an economic system. It is not a political system. So you can't really compare the two. That's like saying, what do you think about socialism versus liking chocolate ice cream more than vanilla? Like it does, the two are not in the same category. So you can't really compare them in that way. Like one could be a socialist and a patriot. One could be a socialist and a nationalist. One could be a nationalist and not a socialist. Like, so the two are not mutually exclusive. They're not opposite sides of a comparable spectrum. You can't really compare the two or contrast the two that way. But yeah, if you want to read about an American actually doing something very difficult and being a real patriot, this is the guy. He was basically crapped on by the U.S. military for it, and it took years and years and years after that for him to get exonerated. So after returning to his base, he reported the massacre to his superiors. They basically said, we're going to take it out on the guy who tried to stop it. Then there was a big cover-up, which you can read about there. He got court-martialed over this, and eventually was exonerated and given a huge amount of recognition for his bravery under fire. I think he might have actually received the Medal of Honor eventually, something like that. But yeah, you would have to read more about it. Let me see if I can find... there should be a link to that specific guy on Wikipedia that it would probably list whether or not... okay, so Hugh Thompson Jr. Yada yada, invention after the massacre. Recognition for actions at My Lai. 30 years. And the other two people who tried to stop the massacre were given the Soldier's Medal, the highest award for bravery involving direct contact with the enemy. So not the Medal of Honor, but a pretty remarkable decoration after having been crapped on by the military for 30 years. Again, communist versus nationalist, not the same category. Communist versus socialist is a valid comparison. Communist versus nationalist is not the same thing. You can be communist and nationalist. Basically, again, nationalism is basically thinking, my country is number one, it's perfect, it's always right, blah, blah, blah. And you can have that view and still be a communist. They're not mutually exclusive. So they're not like opposites to prefer one over the other. Your average nationalist will probably be very big on being a nationalist. But like an American nationalist would never want to be a communist. Somebody who's a real nationalist in China might also be a communist. So the two of them are not mutually exclusive. By the way, Dill, thank you for spending so much time asking questions and making suggestions here in the chat. It's nice to see you here. It's nice to actually have somebody participating so vigorously. It's a new channel, so it doesn't have a huge audience yet. So your activity is appreciated. And if you see my avatar freeze, that's because I'm taking a sip of something. And the facial recognition software does not know what to do with, like, a mug filling the camera. Let's see. What else is going on in the country here? And these are for current results. I'm very interested in the primary type stuff. Kindergarten teaches communism, revolution. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Dill. We can always talk about Bernie Sanders. I'm always down for that. Always down for some Bernie Sanders talk. So here's a question for you. Below the main stream screen, there is a poll where you can talk about or vote for which of the Democratic candidates you think should win the Democrat primary. And I'm curious to know if you have any candidate in that race that you've heard of or think is the best of the bunch. So number one, vote. Number two, if you have one that you think is the best, one in that group, Let me know who it is. Oh, look at that beautiful set of figures there. Bernie ahead of Trump in polls, 49 to 42. We'll take it. We'll take it. Share everything. That goes back to something that I don't know if I actually got to it in the income inequality show. But one of the things that I have said for many years and written about when I was working with Yahoo News and such, is that capitalism works and socialism fails to work. But that's not. You should be careful about how you interpret those words. Because the thing is that capitalism is the system of economics and governance where the people who have the money control everything. So in order for capitalism to work, the only thing that has to be true is that the rich remain in control of everything. It doesn't mean that the economy is working. It doesn't mean people are employed. It just means the rich have all the power. And that works. It succeeds at its goal because people are greedy. Okay? I'm not sure what being something other than American means about whether you would want to be a Democrat or a conservative, Dill, but that's okay either way. The reason that socialism doesn't work is that, again, it doesn't mean that socialism, not working means that nobody's, has bread or anything. It means that when you have a system based on people working for the collective good, that it's contingent on people being altruistic. It's a contingent on people caring about their fellow human beings, their fellow citizens, and wanting to take care of them, even if it means that they have to put in some effort or make a little bit of a sacrifice. So the reason that capitalism works, meaning the reason capitalism allows the rich to stay in power, is that it's a system that works when people are greedy, which people have demonstrated that in large numbers they tend to be. And the reason that socialism doesn't work is because it requires people to actually be kind and decent and caring people, which by and large people are not. Not that they couldn't be if given the right chance, but they've been so conditioned, at least in the United States, to take a me-first attitude that it means that something resembling socialism, democratic socialism, social democracy, or any variant thereof is going to have a very hard time gaining traction, because Americans, not to put too fine a point on it, are trained from youth to be total assholes to everybody. So you want to be a member of parliament? Okay, you have political aspirations. Good for you. Being willing to actually step up and be part of the system is a very big thing. You can be proud of that. Let's take a look at Bernie on the issues, shall we? All right, let's take a look at one of his benchmark things, the Medicare for All. He wants to create a Medicare for All single-payer national health insurance program to provide everyone in America with comprehensive health care coverage free at the point of service. One of the objections that conservatives make to the idea of Medicare for All is it's not free, it's not free, it's not free. And Sanders recognizes that. He says free at the point of service, meaning you don't pay when you're sick. You pay for the system through the taxes you pay on your income and such. And Republicans like to say, oh, it'll cost $30 trillion over 10 years. What they don't tell you is that the healthcare system we have now will cost between 40 and 60 trillion over the same period of time. So there is a net savings to be had by going to a single payer system. But they don't want to talk about that because that makes it look better. It's easy to try to make it look bad when you say, oh, it costs a lot of money. Yes, it costs a lot of money. Not doing it costs more. No networks, no premiums, no deductibles, no copays, no surprise bills. Good, 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 and good. When you're sick, when you need a doctor, you should just go to the facility where they provide the care, get the help you need, and go home. You should not have to go there with money in hand. You should not have to go there worrying about going bankrupt. It's just not the way that should be, and it's not the way it is in pretty much every other modern industrial nation on the planet. We're the only one that screws its citizens that way, and that needs to end. Dill says, I have to go, so good night. Thank you for being here, and I hope you will come back another time. Medicare coverage will be expanded to include dental, hearing, vision, home and community-based long-term care, inpatient and outpatient services, mental health and substance abuse treatment, reproductive and maternity care, prescription drugs, and more. And what he's basically saying there is, unlike the current system where you need like one kind of insurance for health and one kind for your prescription drugs and one kind for dentistry and one kind to get glasses and blah, 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 everything will just be covered under one umbrella and you won't have to worry about it anymore. So I'm on board with that. Stop the pharmaceutical industry from ripping off the American people by making sure that no one in America pays over $200 a year for the medication they need by capping what Americans pay for prescription drugs under Medicare for All. Good. There are people dying all over this country because they are trying to do things like ration their insulin if they're diabetic because they can't afford to get the amount they need to actually use it properly. And when you have insulin-dependent diabetes, if you don't use your insulin, you die. That's how it works. So, just making insulin so expensive when it costs virtually nothing to produce it is something we should probably be considered criminal, honestly. Okay, well, it is 10 o'clock. We've been at this for about an hour tonight. We're going to call it a little bit of a shorter stream. This was the first night on the new schedule, so I wanted to keep things fairly basic and not drown you people in any specific focus thing. We just did a little bit of a news roundup. And then, of course, my candidate being Bernie, we had to talk Bernie for a bit because Bernie's awesome. Vote Bernie in the primary. Vote for anybody you care about as being the Democrat candidate in the primary. And whoever wins, vote for them instead of Trump because Trump is a monster and has to go. And yeah, so now you know how I feel about it. Anyway, yeah, thank you again for coming, and I'll be back again on Friday. We'll be doing the gaming stream on my other channel at 7 o'clock. We'll be doing more politics and news and other such stuff at 9 o'clock. I'm working on developing a topic list for upcoming shows. I'm probably going to do one on feminism, because that's a very big deal topic in the United States right now. I'm always open to new suggestions for topics, so feel free to PM me on Twitch with ideas you have for upcoming show topics of discussion, and I will consider putting them on the docket. In the meantime, have a great night, everybody, and I will catch you again on Friday. Take care.